If Earth's gravity disappeared for 5 minutes, what would happen? Did you think it would be a nationwide celebration of weightlessness? Everyone floating gracefully in midair, like astronauts. Branches you couldn't reach before, you could now reach with just a step. You could even do a few somersaults in the air and shoot a viral video that would definitely go viral on TikTok. Wrong. The truth is, if Earth's gravity really did suddenly vanish during those 5 minutes, not a single person would survive floating in midair. You wouldn't even get a second of joy. And that's the interesting part. Many people think gravity is simply the force that keeps us anchored to the ground. Without it, we'd just be free from our restraints. But there's a deeper secret hidden here, one that concerns each and every one of us. The ultimate secret to why we're still safe and sound, and able to breathe right now. Let us start with a vivid mental exercise. Imagine you're standing at a bustling intersection, perhaps holding a freshly bought iced Americano. The clock ticks once. In this very instant, without any warning, someone forcibly presses the off button on Earth's gravity. 0.1 seconds. This is the very first moment after gravity vanishes. You want to float up slowly like in the movies. You'll immediately feel an extremely terrifying ringing in your ears, immediately followed by a searing, tearing pain in your lungs. Why? Because the atmosphere you depend on for survival has betrayed you in an instant. To put it simply, air isn't naturally present on the Earth's surface. Air is composed of countless, incredibly tiny gas molecules. Right at this very moment, they're colliding wildly in every direction, at nearly 500 meters per second. Normally, the Earth's powerful gravity acts like an invisible giant hand, holding these frenzied gas molecules firmly to the surface, which is what creates atmospheric pressure, allowing you to breathe smoothly. Now, this giant hand has suddenly let go. Those gas molecules, once firmly pinned to the surface, are like caged beasts set free, immediately fleeing at speeds exceeding the speed of sound into the boundless expanse of space. The air around you will be instantly sucked away in less than a second. Your eardrums will burst outward due to the external pressure suddenly dropping to zero. The air in your lungs will expand instantly. If you instinctively hold your breath at this moment, your alveoli would burst open just like a balloon being blown up. But that's not the most deadly part. The even more brutal truth lies within your blood vessels. Have you ever noticed that water boils at less than 100 degrees on high plateaus? Because the lower the atmospheric pressure, the lower the boiling point of water. When gravity vanishes and the atmosphere escapes, the atmospheric pressure around you instantly drops to zero. In this pure vacuum environment, the boiling point of water would drop directly below your body temperature. This means the tears in your eyes, the saliva in your mouth, and the blood flowing through your body will, in those fraction of a second moments of extreme lucidity, boil right inside you. Massive bubbles will form frantically in your bloodstream, stretching your blood vessels to their limit. That cup of iced Americano in your hand will simultaneously boil violently and freeze in an instant. The water in the cup will violently erupt as gas, while simultaneously turning into ice shards as the heat is drawn away. And all of this happens in less than a second. At this very moment, you might still be standing at the crossroads, but your life has already come to an end. But do you think that is the end? Actually, the real show has only just begun. We usually think the ground beneath our feet is incredibly solid, but you must know that the Earth's interior is a hellish realm with temperatures as high as 6,000 degrees. A hellish furnace filled with liquid iron and magma. Right beneath our feet, where the pressure reaches over 3 million standard atmospheres. An utterly terrifying force. It's like a super bomb, held tightly in place by an incredibly hard shell. And the force keeping this bomb from exploding is none other than the Earth's own gravity. Gravity pulls all matter frantically toward the center of the Earth, barely suppressing that expansive force, a force capable of tearing the entire planet apart. Now, the lid holding down that bomb has vanished. In the very first second of losing gravity, the solid asphalt road beneath your feet will not let you float up quietly, because the immense pressure from the Earth's core, the moment it is released, triggers a frenzied rebound. It's like using your hand to squeeze a water-filled balloon, and then suddenly letting go. The ground beneath your feet, the buildings of the entire city, and even the tectonic plates of the entire Eurasian continent will, in that instant, be propelled skyward by the terrifying force surging from the Earth's depths. Countless fissures will spread like a spider web, instantly tearing the city apart. Superheated magma mixed with high-pressure gas will erupt from the Earth's depths, like a super high-pressure water jet, shooting directly into the cold, airless expanse of space. And this is merely the first second after gravity vanishes. For the next 4 minutes and 59 seconds, the entire Earth will undergo the most unimaginable disintegration in the entire universe. Now, let us pull your gaze away from that boiling crossroads. We're going to forcibly shift our perspective to outer space, standing at an almost godlike, absolute height, to witness what this once blue planet, in the very second after losing the shackles of gravity, is actually undergoing. What kind of heart-wrenching ordeal? Think about it carefully. When we walk on hard roads in our daily lives, don't we always feel that the Earth is a colossal, unbreakable solid rock? This is actually the greatest illusion humans create in their daily lives. The real Earth is more like a giant, exploding egg filled with high-pressure magma, and tightly wrapped in an extremely thin, brittle shell. You might think the Earth's crust, the very layer of rock where we humans have lived and thrived for generations, is incredibly thick. But compared to the Earth's radius of over 6,000 kilometers, it is as thin as the skin on an apple. And beneath this thin apple skin lies an extremely violent inferno. Temperatures deep within the Earth's core reach as high as 6,000 degrees Celsius, which is even higher than the temperature on the Sun's surface. The iron and nickel there are melted by the terrifying heat into flowing liquid. Even more terrifying is the existence of 3 million standard atmospheres of pressure. Normally, the Earth's immense mass generates gravitational force, like an invisible, boundless cage that locks this terrifying internal pressure enough to obliterate a galaxy. Firmly locked beneath the crust, gravity pulls inward. Internal pressure pushes outward. The two form an extremely dangerous dynamic equilibrium. But the moment gravity vanishes, the inward pulling cage evaporates into thin air. It's like suddenly removing a several hundred-ton iron weight from a giant spring that has already been compressed to its limit. The instant gravity is lost. That terrifying internal pressure, compressed for 4.5 billion years at the Earth's core. The terrifying internal pressure accumulated at the Earth's core over 4.5 billion years. would trigger an epic, instantaneous rebound. The entire volume of the Earth would begin to expand violently and uncontrollably in an instant. That thin layer of apple peel, the very crust that has protected us for tens of millions of years, simply cannot withstand this violent force surging from within. You would witness an utterly breathtaking scene. Viewed from space, the once smooth and perfect blue surface, in less than a second, like a glass sphere, smashed by an invisible giant hammer, it would instantly be covered with a dense network of massive cracks, reaching dozens of kilometers deep. The famous East African Rift Valley would be instantly torn apart into a bottomless black abyss. The endless Himalaya would be hurtling into space at speeds exceeding the speed of sound, driven by the Earth's own rotational inertia. Skyscrapers weighing hundreds of tons would be uprooted like withered pine cones. Massive cross-sea bridges would twist and snap in midair like noodles. That reinforced concrete, which usually looks indestructible, is as fragile as a toy made from cookie crumbs. In the face of the planet's immense kinetic energy, let us do an utterly despairing math problem. 5 minutes, 300 seconds. Racing outward at 460 meters per second. This means that in these brief 5 minutes, buildings, mountains, and even entire chunks of continental fragments at the Earth's equatorial surface would be hurled directly to an altitude of nearly 140 kilometers above the original surface. What does 140 kilometers mean? That's already beyond the boundary of the atmosphere, into true outer space. At this point, if you could still barely open your eyes, what you would see would certainly not be the blue skies and white clouds we usually gaze upon. Above your head would be a pitch-black, deathly silent abyss of space, and all around you would be the disintegrating ruins of cities, soaring outward at supersonic speeds alongside you. Towering trees uprooted from their roots, and fragments of the Earth's crust dancing through the sky like a meteor shower. Beneath your feet, the Earth, once known as home, is rapidly expanding and cracking before your eyes, transforming into a churning, chaotic morass, composed of dark red magma, shattered tectonic plates, and turbulent air currents. Gravity was once our greatest shackle, trapping us forever on the surface, unable to fly. But now that this shackle has snapped, we finally understand that this chain was not a restraint, but the only protective umbrella the universe, the only protective shield. Imagine all the water on Earth. That's 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of liquid water. Usually, when you stand by the sea and watch the tides rise and fall, you feel the ocean is deep and serene. But have you ever noticed that the only reason this vast body of water stays obediently on the surface is entirely because Earth's gravity is holding it down with all its might? Now, the hand holding down the ocean has vanished into thin air. This is where it gets interesting. For seconds after gravity is lost, the oceans, which cover 71% of Earth's surface, would spiral into total chaos. You might think colossal waves would crash onto the land. Think too small. The seawater has no interest in flooding the land. Its current target is the pitch-black expanse of space above. Because Earth is still spinning violently, the seawater near the equator, with an initial velocity of over 400 meters per second, broke free from the constraints of the seafloor. The entire Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans were like a giant sheet of water, originally spread across the floor, that was suddenly ripped up from the middle. Seawater thousands of meters deep began flowing backward into space as a single mass. This is a kind of extreme despair and grandeur you could never imagine. We turn our gaze to the Mariana Trench. Under normal conditions, the water pressure here reaches 1,000 standard atmospheres, enough to instantly flatten the armor of a steel tank into a thin pancake. But at the very moment gravity vanishes, that crushing pressure of 1,000 atmospheres drops to zero. The seafloor, suppressed for countless centuries, that intensely compressed seawater, erupts upward with ferocious force, like a detonated depth charge. Seabed sediment, deep-sea fish, and even those massive, bizarre-looking deep-sea monsters we've never seen before, are all swept up by this terrifying upwelling current, like a reverse meteor shower, dashing madly toward the now vacuumed ocean surface. But the even more brutal truth unfolds on the surface of this towering oceanic mountain range. As we mentioned earlier, Earth's atmosphere had already escaped completely in the very first second after gravity vanished. At this moment, Earth's surface is an absolute vacuum with zero atmospheric pressure. In a vacuum, water cannot exist in liquid form. When these 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of seawater charge toward space like a rampaging beast, the outermost layer of water immediately began to boil violently. The entire surface of the Earth was instantly enveloped by a layer of extremely dense and rapidly expanding water vapor. This meant that the once blue planet had now transformed into a super pressure cooker violently spewing steam outward. But here lies a physical phenomenon that defies all common sense. As water boils and turns into gas, it absorbs heat from its surroundings with extreme ferocity. In the dead silence of a vacuum, with no atmospheric insulation or heat conduction from surrounding objects, this intense heat absorption from evaporation causes the surrounding temperature to plummet precipitously. And so, the most paradoxical and awe-inspiring spectacle in the entire universe unfolds. While boiling, the seawater rapidly freezes at a speed visible to the naked eye. Countless massive bubbles churning in the water are frozen into razor-sharp icicles in the split second before they burst. Viewed from space, the ocean surging outward transforms into a chaotic monster, half composed of high-temperature, boiling water vapor, and half of solid ice at absolute zero. This monster expands outward at supersonic speeds, obscuring the sun's light. Countless massive ice blocks, each weighing thousands of tons, mixed with still boiling steam, resemble giant blades capable of cutting through anything. They collide and shatter silently in the vacuum. The deep-sea creatures swept up in this chaos have no chance to struggle. Their bodily fluids instantly boil in the vacuum, ripping open their bodies, only to be frozen by the extreme cold into fragile ice sculptures. Finally, amidst the violent collisions of ice blocks, they dissolve into an extremely fine powder of ice crystals. It is now the 4th minute since gravity vanished. The entire Earth has been completely torn apart and is unrecognizable. The atmosphere has vanished without a trace. The crust has shattered into countless fragments of islands hurtling outward, dark red magma spewing from the Earth's core, and the boiling, freezing oceans clash violently in space. Earth is no longer a sphere. It has become a mass of rock, magma, ice, and water vapor, a cosmic debris field, spreading widely in all directions. All matter is racing outward, They believed that they had finally broken free from 4.5 billion years of gravitational bondage and were about to embrace boundless freedom. The 5-minute countdown has only 60 seconds remaining, just one step away from that true final judgment. That moment when all ascending matter faces utter and irreversible destruction. The final second of the 5-minute countdown. The most brutal alarm in the entire universe has sounded. The cruelest alarm clock in the entire universe has gone off. Think about it carefully. During those previous 300 seconds, all the surface matter of the Earth, that is, everything accumulated by human civilization over thousands of years, including cities, oceans, and forests, even the layer of air that protects us, has been frantically fleeing from the Earth's core at hundreds of meters per second. They have already been hurled into the depths of space, more than 100 kilometers away from the original surface. It is a place of extreme chaos, a cosmic junkyard filled with ice crystals, magma, and shattered Earth, a cosmic junkyard. All matter, in this fleeting celebration of weightlessness, believed it had won completely, believed it had forever broken free from that leash that had bound them for 4.5 billion years. But the physical laws of the universe never joke with anyone. The switch was flipped back on. The 5-minute countdown ended. Gravity, this absolute dictator that shaped the entire order of the universe, returns as the sovereign in this very instant. Now this is where it gets interesting. Many might think, since gravity has returned, won't the things that flew out simply fall back down? Just like when you throw a stone into the sky, it eventually crashes back to the ground. At most, it'll just leave a crater. Surely some things must survive, right? If you think that, it means you fundamentally don't understand what planetary-scale kinetic energy truly means. In the very first second of gravity's return, that chaotic storm, composed of seawater ice crystals, urban ruins, and continental plates sweeping through the atmosphere at 140 kilometers high, suddenly slammed on the brakes. Their outward velocity was instantly reduced to zero, and immediately they were dragged, with terrifying, irresistible force, toward the Earth's core. This was the largest free-fall event in the entire universe. The even more brutal truth is that in an absolute vacuum, there is no air resistance. You may have heard of that famous experiment in your junior high physics class, where, in a vacuum glass tube, a feather and an iron ball fall simultaneously. Now, this law has been scaled up to the size of an entire planet. This means those 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of shattered glacier, countless mountain ranges torn from their roots, hundreds of billions of tons of steel structures, along with those life forms, long since frozen to dust in the vacuum, will have no order of arrival. In perfectly parallel trajectories, with terrifying acceleration, plunging madly toward the Earth's exposed core, that churning mass of magma at 6,000 degrees Celsius, deep within the planet. This is a reign of ultimate judgment that defies description. Under the pull of gravity, the speed of these falling objects will grow faster and faster. When they are about to strike the magma layer deep underground, their descent speed will have exceeded 1,600 meters per second. That is a factor of 5. This brings us to a deadly fundamental principle of physics, namely the conservation of energy. When you are hurled high into the sky, how much gravitational potential energy do you accumulate? The greater the destructive force, That will be unleashed the instant you crash into the ground. Imagine this. Normally, a meteorite just a few dozen meters wide, crashing into Earth, can destroy an entire city. But at this very moment, it is a mass equivalent to the entire Earth's crust, combined with all the world's oceans, with terrifying kinetic energy at 5 times the speed of sound, carrying out a comprehensive, all-encompassing saturation bombardment. The instant the impact occurs, no sound can travel outward, because the air itself is plummeting downward at supersonic speeds. But you will see a light of destruction, pure to the extreme. Enormous kinetic energy, in that moment, is converted, without reservation, into thermal energy. Those hard rock plates and steel skyscrapers, the instant they make contact with the mantle, are not simply shattered, but are instantly vaporized, in temperatures of tens of thousands of degrees. As we mentioned earlier, when the oceans were hurled into space, they froze into gigantic ice blocks, weighing tens of millions of tons. When these massive ice blades slammed into the boiling sea of magma at 5 times the speed of sound, the water molecules didn't even have time to turn into steam. Instead, under the extreme physical impact and super high temperatures, they were forcibly torn apart into hydrogen and oxygen. And the mixture of hydrogen and oxygen collided head-on with the extreme heat. It was as if, right on the Earth's surface, a super hydrogen-oxygen bomb, equivalent in volume to the total volume of all the oceans on Earth, had been detonated. Next came the most breathtaking sequence. The atmosphere that had previously escaped into space, those air molecules composed of nitrogen and oxygen, were now violently pulled back by gravity. They acted like an immense super piston enveloping the entire Earth, pressing down heavily upon this sea of magma and fire that had just undergone a massive explosion. Have you ever pumped up a bicycle tire? When you quickly push down the pump's piston, the bottom of the pump gets very hot. In physics, this is called adiabatic compression. Now, the entire Earth's atmosphere is like a super-sized piston being pressed down with all its might by Mother Nature. Trillions of tons of air are forcibly compressed back to the Earth's surface at supersonic speeds. This extremely violent compression causes the temperature of the air itself to skyrocket to several thousand degrees Celsius in an instant. Thus, the high-temperature magma generated by the impact, combined with the sea of fire from the hydrogen-oxygen explosion, and the lid of air at several thousand degrees, converge perfectly on the surface of this planet. The entire surface of the Earth has become a true, ultimate high-pressure alchemical furnace with not a single crack. All seawater has been completely vaporized. All buildings, plastics, and plants, even the hardest diamonds, under this combined extreme heat and pressure, melted once more into indistinguishable basic elements, and were completely absorbed into that churning, dark red, endless sea of magma. In just 5 minutes, all traces left by thousands of years of human civilization were wiped away, as if with a damp cloth, wiping a speck of dust off a blackboard, were wiped away clean, without leaving even a single atomic structure behind. Earth no longer had mountains, no longer had ravines, no longer had azure oceans. It reverted to the state it was in for 0.5 billion years ago, when it was first born, a sphere with an incredibly smooth surface, composed purely of boiling magma, emitting a blinding red glow. In the cold universe, back to reality. Take a deep breath. Let those incredibly docile air molecules, composed of nitrogen and oxygen, fill your alveoli once more. Look at the coffee cup sitting steadily by your side. Touch the chair you're sitting on. Or even stomp your feet firmly on the incredibly solid floor beneath you. Have you noticed that in just those few minutes of imagination, your perception of this everyday world has undergone an utterly spine-chilling, yet profoundly dislocation? We used to think that so-called gravity was just a nuisance that makes us hurt when we fall, causes our skin to sag as we age, and fills us with anxiety on the scale every day. Humans have even invented countless machines and consume tens of thousands of tons of fossil fuels just to briefly escape the Earth's surface, to experience that so-called freedom of floating in midair. But after undergoing that excruciating thought experiment just now, the logical fallacy hidden behind common sense has been utterly shattered. To put it plainly, gravity is not some shackle that imprisons us. It is the only protective umbrella in this extremely chaotic, dark universe brimming with destructive forces that holds you tightly in its embrace. This is quite interesting. We are always arrogant enough to believe that it is humanity, relying on its own wisdom, that has built a great civilization on Earth. But in reality, what determines whether you can peacefully finish a cup of hot tea today is not technological progress at all, but rather, at this very moment, more than 6,000 kilometers deep beneath your feet, that colossal entity weighing nearly 600 trillion tons, with its terrifying mass, it has forcibly into a massive indentation. And you, and I, and all our cities, oceans, and the civilizations we take pride in are merely lying, utterly content, at the very bottom of this space-time indentation. The deeper truth is, you have never been an isolated individual in this world. When you stand on a scale and see that number that might not quite satisfy you, do you think it's just the weight of your fat and bones? Zoom out a bit further. That number represents an entire massive, ancient rocky planet across the vast expanse of space, spanning billions of years, engaging in an intensely powerful physical resonance with every atom in your body. It is Earth using its entire mass, telling you that it needs you to remain on its surface. Just think about it. The universe is a mad slaughterhouse, filled with supernova explosions, gamma-ray bursts, and countless meteorite fragments, racing at supersonic speeds, in the depths of absolute zero. In such a cruel environment, where even stars are instantly torn apart by black holes, how is it that we can, with liquid water and a thick atmosphere, safely scrolling through our phones? It is precisely because of this invisible, intangible, yet supremely domineering gravitational force that it suppresses the terrifying magma deep within the Earth's core, enough to obliterate the entire planet. And it holds fast to the atmosphere that would otherwise escape into outer space. It forcibly presses 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of seawater down onto the ocean floor. It maintains the physical laws upon which we depend through an utterly ruthless, absolute dictatorship. Nothing can bargain with this force. And it is precisely this dominance that gives us the most profound sense of security. We spend our entire lives battling gravity, struggling to stand as infants, and attempting to fly into space as adults. We think we are conquering the world. But every time we land safely, It is actually the universe, carrying out a silent redemption for us. So the next time you feel the pressure of life is overwhelming, when you feel as if you're being squeezed between two steel plates and can't catch your breath, or when you feel your whole life is in a constant free fall, plunging to the bottom, I hope you'll remember the 5 minutes we've spent today. Don't fight that sensation of falling. Feel it. Feel the massive celestial body, weighing 600 trillion tons, beneath your feet. Feel how it, with a force that has endured for 4.5 billion years, pierces through hardened concrete and steel, and steadily supports your feet. This isn't a constraint. It's cosmic-level favor. In this vast, boundless, and extremely dangerous sea of stars, you are being held tightly in the embrace of a magnificent planet. As long as gravity remains, as long as you can still feel the weight of your own body, it means the world has not yet fallen apart. All violent forces of destruction are still being firmly suppressed. It means you are still safe. It means that every fall will ultimately be gently caught by the earth. Oh, and today is New Year's Eve. Wishing you a happy new year. Sweet dreams, good night.